Welcome to Inside the Franchise Growth Engine, presented by Hex Growth, a firm focused on building predictable pipelines, scalable growth systems, and enterprise value for franchise brands. These are real stories from real operators, founders, and growth leaders, but we go deeper. Inside the Growth Engine, leaders unpack the systems, leadership decisions, and operational discipline that transforms growth into enterprise value. On today's podcast, and we're very excited, we have Ryan Miller. Ryan is a seasoned restaurant and franchisee executive whose career spans multi-unit operations, franchise ownership, and brand leadership. Today, he serves as the president and CEO of Twice on Sunday LLC, a Graze Craze franchise organization, president of the Graze Craze Ad Fund, who also serves as the vice president of operations for SC Wings, the Dragus Group, and Mudhouse Coffee. Having led businesses from both franchisor and franchisee perspective, Ryan brings a unique understanding of what it takes to build high-performing teams, strengthen franchise systems, and create long-term value for owners and customers alike. Ryan, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Don. I appreciate it. You asked, and this was a no-brainer. Thank you for having me on.
All right. So Ryan, clearly, as Don mentioned, your career is taking you through restaurant operations, executive leadership, franchise ownership, and franchise leadership. So looking back, what attracted you initially to this industry, and can you tell us about how you got to where you are today?
Crazy story. I grew up blue collar, dad, union ditch digger, I guess the best way to put it. Came home on a very hot summer afternoon as I laid on the couch because I was in between, spring session and fall session for school. I was going to college at the time. Covered this head to toe in sweat and mud and asked me what my plans were for the rest of the summer. And I said, "You're looking at them." And he said, "That doesn't work for me. You got two choices. Either move yourself out, and not in so many words, move yourself out, or go get a job." First or second place I stumbled into was a Red Lobster. I was like, I need a job. They're like, "We only have busser positions available." I was 20 at the time. I said, "I'll take it." I'd never been in the restaurant business before, other than to go out to dinner. And even my family, we weren't real big diners. And as they say, the rest is history. I never left. I spent 7 years with Red Lobster as I finished up both my associate's degree and then my bachelor's of science at Cal Poly Pomona's hospitality and management program. Got married at the time, started a family, so extended it a little bit, and left them to work for Disney. It was my first real job out of college. My first real management job was with Disney in the park as a food ops manager.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, a wonderful opportunity to work for such a great organization like Disney, so good on you. How has becoming a franchise owner changed the way that you evaluate business opportunities?
So night and day. And I always used to tell people, I'll run your business like it's my own. I think I lied a little bit because, as I was kind of mentioning to you guys this morning, we got a call late last night about a very large order for this morning that had to be delivered, an hour away at 8 a.m. So my business partner and I are up at 3 a.m. and we're in here, doing what we need to do to get this order put together and get out to them. I can't say that I was as gung-ho to do that when I was on the corporate side of things. As a franchisee, I mean, you literally do whatever it takes. And you want to talk about hats. I mean, there are millions of hats that you'll wear from day to day. A very distinct difference in how you go about thinking about and actually operating the business.
Yeah, that's a prime example right there. Exactly what you just did on, or really owning it, yourself. And speaking of operational excellence, which you're clearly living it, what do you think separates organizations that consistently execute from those that struggle on a regular basis?
I mean, for me, it starts and ends with culture. I'm out here on the West Coast, but I think those that have different organizations on the East Coast can relate. Out here, we have In-N-Out, and In-N-Out is a staple and has been a staple for 70 some odd years. And you can go into In-N-Out at 3 a.m. in the morning or 3 in the afternoon or 10 in the morning, and you are going to get the same consistent hello. You're going to get the same consistent effort. You're going to get the same consistent product. And I used to tell my managers all the time, do you think they're just the luckiest people in the world when they hire? No, it's all about the culture that they've created. And when you create great culture, which is, I always look to them as one of the companies that has created great culture. Great culture feeds itself. Once you have it, you've got it set up, and you have the people in place that are living it. They don't allow outside influences to interrupt that culture, so to speak. It's like the human body, you know what I mean? It's got all these antibodies and all these things are going to fight off all of these different things that might try to attack you. It's the same thing with great culture. They're never going to let that negative influence get in. And, it just provides you with such a consistent feel good about pulling out your wallet and spending your money, because it's going to be the same every time you go.
Yeah. So Ryan, I was born and raised in California. I moved to the Northeast 5 years ago, and I will tell you, In-N-Out Burger is like the first thing that my wife and I get when we come back and visit. We miss it. In fact, someone was trying to argue with me that it's, Shake Shack is better, and I'm like, we might have to agree to disagree, because if you've not had a good In-N-Out Burger, forget it. It's hard to compete with that. So,
well, and I'll tell you too, I just had lunch a little bit ago, and in the South you have Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is exactly the same thing. It's my pleasure, and it's the the guest or the customer always comes first. And I literally, in my time with them, interacted with 3 or 4 people sitting down having a quick lunch. From, hey, can we get this out of your way, to, oh, do you need another refill? Brought my food out. I mean, and that's all culture based, right? That's not luck of the draw. That's not having a couple of really good team members working for you. Every single person was living that and breathing that culture. And that's what you get. You get success.
It's interesting because we've had probably 3 podcasts. We had probably 3 podcasts last week, and we talked to some other CEOs, and culture is always on the top of their mind and what they're discussing. So to that end, if every franchisor viewed decisions through the eyes of their franchisees, the franchise owners, what would change?
Everything and nothing. Right? Because, the franchisee A thinks you should do ABC, the franchise B thinks you should do DCE, and franchisor 3 thinks you should do F. So, yeah, that struggle is real, you know what I mean? Because what I'm dealing with and what some of my opportunities are may not be what my partner next door to me is dealing with. So, for me, I think it's really important with franchisors that they really set the tone, and they understand the DNA of the corporation. They understand what the mission statement is. They have those things in place, and they don't waver from it, because franchisees are going to do whatever it takes. And we talked about this right at the beginning. You're going to do whatever it takes to make your business successful, right? I mean, I'll give you the prime example. We're a charcuterie business, right? And we had a franchisee down in the Texas market selling ice cream. It's like, great idea. I'm sure it's popular, but you can't do that.
Yeah.
We're charcuterie, we're not ice cream, right? So those are the kinds of things where you just have to have really, really strong leadership, really strong boots on the ground to make sure that your franchisees understand that, right? And sometimes you have to say no. And, that no could become a little uncomfortable and, might upset some people. But at the end of the day, it's going to make the brand stronger. And that's what this is all about, right? We all win when the brand is stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so funny. That's so common as you start to have, once you reach a certain number of franchisees, you always have the ones that wanted to kind of just trial do their own pilot, right? In their own market.
Yeah. I used to tell my managers, and if I was ever running an organization, I would tell them literally, if you want to make everyone happy, sell ice cream. But if you want to sell anything other than ice cream, you're going to have people that are unhappy, right? Selling ice cream, everybody loves, but other than that, there's going to be some challenges.
So true. So true. As president of Graze Craze Ad Fund,
Hmm.
obviously you're helping steward marketing dollars on behalf of the franchisees. What principles guide your decisions when you're investing someone else's money?
So what we did is we really looked at the big picture, right? So you cut it up. You start with your 100% of the influx of cash, and whatever that number is. It could be $1, it could be $1 million, it could be $1 trillion. And then you really have to dictate how much of that's going to go to a national spend and how much is going to go to a local spend. And that's a really, really big decision, because let's just say, for example, you have a brand that, you know, is not planning to go national and is going to stay as local as possible, then you're probably not going to invest a ton in any kind of national sponsorships or partnerships or whatnot. But if you have aspirations to grow, like Grace Craze is with us, where we're at 130 some odd stores, and the plan is to see that thing get to 1,000 plus, you've got to have some name recognition. You got to have some eyeballs. You have to have some people that understand who you are and what you're about, and hopefully been exposed to you in some way, shape, or form. So with us, we really, the first thing that I had set up was, what is our spend going to look like? And we kind of cut it up. We chopped it up at a 70% national spend and a 30% local spend. So that 30% local spend is more driven on SEO and a lot of the things that you can do with social media and whatnot to get yourself noticed in your market. We did some stuff with Easy Cater and some of the national platforms that could hopefully bump you up a little bit and get you a little bit more visibility. But that national spend, that 70% of every dollar, I mean, you're talking about large partnerships with organizations that could potentially get you in publications. It could get you in front of influencers. And we all know that that's the way of the future right now. As much as we want to maybe some of us old school people want to poo-poo that a little bit and say that's not, it is the way to go. And especially a brand like ours, charcuterie, which for all intents and purposes is a little bougie, right? It's a little bit of a plus one extra spend that someone probably doesn't have to do. So when you can get some really popular influencers with a lot of followers that are saying, hey, I did this at my party, people loved it, yada, yada, really helps us. So that for me was the biggest hurdle, was to really land on where that spend was going to be. And then once you get that big funnel built, then it's a matter of, let's just funnel the things to where we want, based off of opportunity, based off of what money we have to spend, and potentially where are there gaps or pitfalls that we need to close up.
And regardless of how you make the spend, right, Ryan? I mean, I know that earlier in the call, before we started the podcast, Monica and I both shared we are also in franchising. One of the things that I beat the drum with my own franchisees here in the Northeast, community activation is a multiplier, is a force multiplier for your digital spend, meaning you got to build relationships. Chamber of Commerce needs to know you. The influencers need to know you. Those local office parks need to know you, because those are all opportunities to drive additional revenues through your doors. So I love it. I love the approach.
Well, and I would say, just to add on to that, that's where a lot of times the rubber meets the road, or it doesn't meet the road. When you have these franchisees that come aboard, they pay their franchise fee, they open their door, and they say, okay, give me my business. Like, where's all my business that it's going to happen because I open the doors? And they don't understand that the work starts then. The work is not over once you open the door. Now all your hard work starts, because it's all of those community connections that you're doing, all the hands you're shaking, all the babies you're kissing, and, potentially being in places that, I mean, I can't tell you how many times as franchisees we went to events where we just looked at each other a half hour in and went, oh my God, why did we do this? This is not good for us. But there's a lot of swing and miss in this. But when you hit a home run, it fuels you to the next one. You know what I mean? When you get in front of a bunch of people and all of a sudden you've handed out 50 business cards and you've, done X amount of sales, and now you have all these leads and whatnot. And then you're like, okay, that's why I did 12 other ones that didn't work.
Because you don't know what you don't know, especially in the early days,
Right.
right? You're talking about the context of opening your doors. You have to do it. It almost is, it's the best thing for your business to be out there pressing the flesh. I agree
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. To that, what's one misconception people have about restaurant franchising?
I often like to tell people that running a restaurant is probably the hardest and going to be at pretty much the least profitable business you could ever operate. I mean, you think about it, the best case scenario, and I'm saying best case is you're making 20 cents on the dollar. That's best case scenario, right? Most people waddle in the low teens, and 9 out of 10 don't make it. And that is a fact. And unfortunately, I think even those odds are getting to be a little bit longer these days because of the more movement towards going with what I think the Amazons of the world and those kinds of things that are just really making you feel comfortable about spending your money, whether it's McDonald's or whether it's, like we said, In-N-Out or whatever, that you're going to get a consistent product. And a lot of people are not as excited to get out there and try new things and potentially not have great experiences. And I think there's a lot of people in the market right now, like you just mentioned, about opening your own store or your own business that quite frankly shouldn't be doing that. And that scares a lot of people off, and unfortunately makes things much more difficult for the franchisee.
When it comes to developing people versus obviously instead of just managing employees, what qualities do you look for when you're trying to identify future leaders for this type of organization?
I think that's changed over the years. I think beginning of my career, I looked for somebody that wanted to work the 80-hour work week like I did, and if you could find those kinds of people, you were going to promote them because they were just like you.
Yeah.
Culture's changed quite a bit now. I think now you look for people that are engaged, that are sponge-like, that ask questions, that are curious about what's happening, that want to be a part of processes, and that understand the business and the work ethic. And in the restaurant business, for a long time now, we've always had the issue of fraternization and those kinds of things. You really have to find people that have the integrity to separate the job from the people. You can go have fun, be the first person to go into a birthday party, the last person to show up and first person to leave. You know what I mean? And just, you have to separate and have those walls built up because that crossover can get you in a lot of trouble. But for me, without a doubt, I mean, developing people from within, I think is becoming a lost art. And we don't feel like we have the time, the energy, or the money to do that. But I feel like those are those people that you invest all of that time and energy in are the future leaders of your organization, right? And I always like to say this is if you're hiring somebody from the outside, especially in the restaurant business, especially hourly positions, you are in essence potentially hiring somebody's C player. You're hiring somebody's C or D player. You're not getting their A's and you're maybe not getting their B's because the A's are being taken care of. They love where they're working. They're happy. The B's are there. They're paying the bills. They're good. It's the C players that are just unhappy, miserable, not doing a great job, possibly being disciplined. Those are the people that you're going to end up getting when you hire from the outside. And then it becomes, a crapshoot. You're rolling the dice, and I'm not really good at rolling the dice. I'd rather take the 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 hours of observation and time that I spent with somebody other than the 45 minutes of an interview that I could potentially have with them to make a decision.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. The one thing I do notice, Ryan, in franchising a lot of times, and I'm not suggesting it's your organization or the organizations that Monica and I work for or work with. A lot of times the employees don't understand what the corporate goals are. So you could have a really good player on your hands that just doesn't understand what the overall arc of the business is. And the reason I'm saying that is I'm actually calling myself out a little bit. I just needed to do a better job of calling that out. So to that point, how do you create accountability without creating bureaucracy?
Well, I think you hit it on the head when you said the whys. I mean, this youth, the youth of today want to know why. They don't want you to say I could because I said so, or it's not anything you need to worry about. They need that buy-in. They need to have that understanding. They need to have that information to help. And I feel like once you get them to understand what you're trying to do, it's so much easier to get the buy-in. So much easier to get the buy-in. Hey, the reason why we're switching this service model is because our Q scores or our Yelp scores or our Google scores are some of the lowest in our area. And most people are saying because it's service related, that service is too slow. We're moving to the service model to address that issue and hopefully over time start to build back the trust and build back this business to what it used to be. That's what we're trying to do here. So once you get to the whys of it, you give them the facts, you make them understand it. I think it's much, much easier for them to get the buy-in from them. And once you get buy-in from these young folks, man, they are bought in. They are 100% in. But that buy-in becomes a little bit difficult to convince them of the reasons why.
Yeah, very different culture nowadays
Yep.
from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Yes.
It's a shift, definitely a shift. So changing gears a bit, obviously technology and AI are rapidly changing the operations of the restaurant industry. Where do you see technology creating the biggest opportunity over the next 5 years, but without replacing the hospitality side of things and the people side of things?
So I think there are definitely points of contact with guests that I think AI can help with. Over the phone, I think it's really important. At the order, I think sometimes you can utilize AI. But the reality is, like you said, we're a people business. We're in the hospitality business. So if you try to start replacing all of what hospitality is, then you're going to have people that are just going to go eat in their living room, right? They're going to get it delivered by somebody that they don't talk to because they're going to drop it at the front door and they'll never have any interaction. No, I feel like AI will definitely help curb some of the the struggles there are on the labor front. We all know that, and especially in the restaurant industry in California where I'm at. I mean, we've got restaurants and cities and whatnot and different qualifications that you're paying $20, $25, $30 an hour for somebody to, quite frankly, take an order, make a bed, or cook a burger. And there's only two ways that you can get that money back, right? Is either you increase the sales or your prices go way up, right? And so, I think for me, it's really important to understand to, put AI in the corral a bit, let it out when you need to let it out, but you need to secure it a bit because you can go way over the top. And it's funny, and this might be totally off base, but I just read an article and they were talking about a study of high school students, and they had a group that they were posed a problem, and one was allowed to use AI 100%, like anywhere you could use it, you can use it to solve this problem. And then you had one that could use AI, but only in certain instances. And then you had one that had to use paper and pencil in their brains and talk. They studied the brainwave activity during these discussions. The AI people, the full AI people, very little brainwave action, very little synapses firing. It was all the machine making the decisions. Where they saw the most brain function, the most learning, the most excitement, the endorphins, all of that was from the group that didn't use it, right? Because we're still at the ground level, we're still humans, and we still thrive and need those kinds of situations to help us grow as people and understand. And I think that right now, I think it's really important to just, pump the brakes a little bit.
If you could travel back in time, what would you tell your younger self before buying your first franchise?
I probably would have told myself to have more confidence in me. I don't really feel like I was 100% confident in my abilities until I got into my 30s, maybe in my late 30s. And I should have done that right out of the gate in my early 20s. I think I gave away 15 years of truly capitalizing on me and what I could do. And so if I were to go back, I would say, when you thought about opening that high level sports bar with the really nice bar stools and the decorative wood bar and the wood flooring and the upscale bourbon and all of that stuff that I was thinking about in the late 90s, I'd go do it. I'd go do it. There's a lot of comfort that comes from working for somebody else, right? Your paycheck comes every 2 weeks. The 401k gets put in. You've got medical, you've got dental, but there's a ceiling. And depending on which organization you work for, that ceiling either is higher or lower, right? And I was fortunate enough at some point to get to a company where the ceiling was elevated a bit, but when you're a franchisee, there is no ceiling. You can do you. And I've told people, I mean, this is a little crazy, but I've told people when I die, I want my kids and people around me to say that I was the charcuterie king of Southern California. That's what I want. I want it on my name. I want it on my license plate. I want charcuterie king. So, I would have never, ever thought that way back in the day. But now I do.
I just went Friday. We had a whole charcuterie board
I love
Friday.
it. I love it. Thank you.
They are awesome. I like the cups. I'm a fan of the cups.
Yes, we just delivered
Charcuterie
250
cups,
of them yesterday to a party out in Irvine. Yeah, we love the cups. We don't like making the cups. They're very difficult to put together and wrap, but they're good. They are good. Yes.
Well, Ryan, is there anything else? I know Don's gonna ask I know what questions Don's gonna ask, but before that, is there anything you'd like to share about Graze Craze and the growth and just about you guys as a whole?
I would just say, for anybody out there that's looking to jump into something, really do your homework and really look at the field, so to speak, right? If there's 50 other people doing the same thing, you have one of two choices. Either you can be the best in the field or you go do something else. And so I would always say to really look at what the competition is. Look at the brand itself. Can you elevate that brand above that competition and make you number one choice? For me, that's the number one filter to go through. The second part of it is that if you are going to do this, you got to understand that you better love it, because you're going to have days like today where you're up at 3:30 in the morning and working, 12, 15-hour days. And you got to be able to love what you do. And you got to be able to love, the product that you're selling and the people that you're interacting with when you do it.
We talked earlier about your particular brand and your boards. Did the seasonal boards change, or are they generally the same?
So yeah, we have a couple that changed. We have a holiday board that comes obviously during Q4, which is our most popular 3 months of the year: October, November, December. We have a game day board that kicks off during football season. And then we've done some things here and there on LTOs. I'm really pushing for us to do a little bit more of that. I would love to do some LTO hummuses. There's some fantastic hummuses out there. I mean, I had a oh man, it was a pomegranate based hummus that was to die for, and I was in Arizona visiting my family. But there are some really, really great recipes and things out there that are happening that I'd like to see us capture in on a little bit. The other thing too that I would like us to see is, we are Graze Craze, and we do primarily charcuterie, but we get asked a lot for like wraps and sandwiches. It just kind of goes well. You bring charcuterie and you bring, some wraps or whatnot, and now you've got snacking for the whole day for the group, and then you have lunch also. So I'd like to see us dip our foot into that a little bit. Call them, I don't know, great, crazy wraps or something like that. And yeah, I think it's a space that we could just, I don't want to say live in, but I think we could open the door in and allow us a little bit more exposure and potentially a little bit more ability for people to utilize us for, both lunch, dinner, business meetings, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and my understanding too, if I remember correctly, you guys also offer like desserts, cookies, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we have a
right?
dessert board. We have a brunch board that we do. We do a dessert board. We do a keto board for those that are, that are staying away from the carbs. We do a wine pairing board that comes with a wine pairing guide, and it's got a ton of different cheeses and meats on there that pair very, very well with whatever wine you're trying to serve. We get a lot of traction on that with the ladies doing their wine nights and parties like that. We'll get the wine boards going. But yeah, we try to check as many boxes as we can, and then of course our classic board, which everyone loves, that has basically everything you could imagine on a charcuterie board.
I was just gonna say, I think you bringing up the sandwiches and the wraps, I think that's a big decision. I think it's a very, very smart decision. I think something that I've had conversations with Dawn and other people as well. One thing that I learned working with F45 training was the trends are constantly changing, and the franchises that keep up with the trends are the ones that stay relevant and do really well, right? So going from boards to, what you currently have to now offering sandwiches and wraps and, like you said, lunches and dinners, like that's going to be a big game changer because it's going to affect your business positively, but it's also going to keep you relevant based off what the need of the customers want and what they're looking for.
Well, and Monica, the truth be told, I worked for a brand previous to owning Graze Craze and working with who I work with now. And it was taquitos, and the taquitos were great, but that's all we sold was taquitos. Well, how many times a month do you have taquitos? Maybe once a month, maybe every 3 to 6 months, right? So it's the same thing with charcuterie. I mean, how many opportunities do you have to have charcuterie, right? And it's fairly limited in those times, a party, a get together, a gathering. But when you start to expand that a little bit more to where you can get into the everyday, like whether it's a sandwich or a wrap, those are everyday items: pizza, burgers, burrito, those kinds of things that people basically live on week to week. And if you can sneak in there just a little bit with some fantastic products that link back to what we do and who we are, which is charcuterie, I feel like it's something that can really help us, get over that top a little bit.
In 10 years, if something else is the new fancy thing, you modify again, right?
Yep.
Maybe you remove the wrap and replace it with whatever people want at that time.
Right.
So,
to me, a good charcuterie board should be at every party, right? Like especially before the main dishes get out there. And honestly, to me, it's not just great food; it's a time savings. Yes. Like to not have to think about like, okay, I need to run to the store and try to buy all these different appetizers and shit. Like, have a nice if you've not been to their website, go to their website. It's grazecraze.com and check out their menu. I mean, it's legitimately nice boards. Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
Don, we talk about this too. It's not just the time to go shopping and then to chop, cut, place,
Yes.
put together.
Yes.
And you got to hope that it looks nice because you're going to get judged, right? You know that. You got guests coming over. They're going to be like, what the heck is this? Or, oh my gosh, great job. But then what happens at the end when you have a fridge full of stuff left over that you didn't put on the board because you can't buy just enough for the board? Guess what happens? It goes to some crisper, and then 6 months later, you know, the husband or wife goes, what is this? Throw this out. And now you just spent 3 times the amount that you should have on a board, and you just tossed out all the goodies. So absolutely.
All right. Anything else that you'd like to share? Any way for people to get a hold of you if they're interested?
Yeah, GrazeCraze.com. I mean, it's the easiest. We are at over 130 locations right now, so hopefully we're in your area. You know, we mentioned a little bit. We celebrate. One of our taglines is we celebrate everything. You know, we celebrate breakups as much as we celebrate weddings, right? So whenever you need a little comfort, we're there for you. And we've got a board that could fit that need. And we've got great leadership. We've got great people in the stores, great franchisees that care very passionately about what we do. And I just encourage you to go out there and give us a try.
Thank you, Ryan. We really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thanks for being here, Ryan.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.